Shabbat Shalom. This week we read two fascinating stories of espionage. One is tragic and the other is exciting and successful. The tragic one, of course, is the story of the 12 spies that Moshe sends to scout out the land. And the Haftorah, picking up on that theme, tells us the story of the two spies sent by Joshua. And the report of the 12 spies, of course, is one that leads to tragedy and 40 years in the desert. But the story of the two spies of Joshua leads to the conquering of Jericho, the first conquest leading towards the greater conquest of all of Eretz Yisrael. And one theme I want to explore is what's the difference between these two projects, these two operations, in terms of what happened on the ground. And Rabbi Shaviv, in his book where he compares the Torah to the Haftorah, brings up a number of differences between the two operations. The first is that Moshe picks 12 spies. It's a large group. Joshua only has 2. In the Torah portion, Moshe's spies, they're all named. For example, we know that L'matei Yisachar, in the tribe of Yisachar, there was Yigal ben Yosef. Or in Ephraim, we had Hoshea ben Nun, Binyamin Paltiel ben Rafu. We don't know the names of the two spies who went to scout out Jericho itself. Along the same lines, the Torah tells us that the spies that Moshe sent were Anshe Shem, they were Roshei Yisrael, they were people of stature, of importance, of a certain standing in the community. We don't know anything about the spies that Yoshua sent. Apparently they were common people of average status. When they come back, Moshe's spies make their report public. It's done before the whole Eidah, the whole congregation. Yoshua's spies come back and quietly report what they saw just to Yoshua. In addition to these distinctions that Rabbi Shaviv has made, I want to add a couple of my own. First of all, what was the scope of the operation? Moshe's spies are there to scout out the entire land, and in fact, the Torah tells us that they went from Midbar Tzin, Lavo Hamat, all the way from the desert of Sin to Hamat, and they came up in the Negev, and they were in Hebron. We get a detailed accounting of all the different places throughout Eretz Yisrael, or at that time Eretz Canaan, that these spies went, as opposed to the spies sent by Joshua. Now, at first, it looks like they may have had a similar type of big project. It says, L'chu uru et haaretz, go out and see the land, ve'et Yericho, and Yericho. At first glance, you might think that the project was to go and see all of the land, and including in that Jericho. However, often the Hebrew word and can define the term that came before it. So, in other words, most likely what Joshua's spies are being told to do is to scout out the part of the land known as Jericho. One city, one small contained operation. Another piece is the length of these operations. Moshe's spies spend 40 days going throughout all of the land. We don't know exactly how long. The book of Joshua doesn't tell us exactly how long the operation of Yoshua was, but from a cursory read, it looks like it was just a few days, maybe 5 days, something like that. So a comparison between these two spy missions might lead us to the following conclusion, that the bombastic, maybe even arrogant mission that Moshe sends the spies on leads ultimately to the downfall. As we say, a pride comes before a fall. As opposed to Joshua, who set his sights smaller, was more modest. That was a project that was achievable and led to success. I think that that's certainly true. However, to complicate the picture, it's interesting When Moshe's spies come back and give their report, they say that there we saw the people of the land, et nefilim b'nei anak. We saw these giant people. V'nehi be'einenu kechagavim, v'chein hayinu be'eineihem. They say, we looked like grasshoppers compared to them in our eyes and in their eyes. Well, this is kind of undoes a little bit of what I just suggested, because here this seems to be an expression of great modesty, a sense of self-deprecation. We were small, they're great. But perhaps the two go together. When people imagine that they're more than they are, that sometimes leads, that overestimation, that arrogance leads to, when it meets reality, to a sense of a complete loss of self-confidence. We imagined we were greater, much greater than we were. When we realize that we're not that great, sometimes we think we're nothing. On the other hand, a self-awareness, a modesty that's actually self-aware of what an individual does have to bring. That's not part of an illusion, but rather a good sense of self, a good sense of self-confidence can lead to achieving that which we can. And the message of the story of the spies, the two stories of the spies, should perhaps lead us to conclude, on the one hand, that we need to have an appropriate sense of self, not something greater than we are, but not something less either. Shabbat Shalom.